Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 343 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels coming to you from Sandusky, Ohio, and I am absolutely thrilled that you're listening. I have a day off from my summer job, and we're going to be sitting down and previewing round 18. And there's a couple of big stories, and I do want to give a shout out to one of my mates who also does a podcast as well, because he had some really insightful things that he shared on his YouTube channel earlier today, and I really want to talk about that as well. Now, I do hope you'll head over to my website, ayankonthefooty.com, and get signed up on the mailing list there. If you enjoy the show, I hope you'll leave a 5-star review over there as well. You can leave one on the podcast's website, or you can leave it out at Apple Podcast or Spotify as well. It really helps out the show, gives me some street credibility, um, and would greatly appreciate it. And when you get subscribed, also when new episodes come out, they'll be in your email within just a few minutes of when they've been released. Now, even though this is episode 343, it's technically my 400th episode. Okay, which I'm quite frankly stunned by that. It's kind of crept up on me. I've been doing this podcast since December of 2019, and I will readily admit, I've got 3 or 4 interviews that are in the can that I've not edited and put out yet, but that's my bread and butter. That's what I really, really enjoy doing. But I had done several dozen live episodes that I did not number. But as far as my podcast hosts, they've counted them, and this is episode 400. And for those of you who have been with me for the journey, I truly, truly appreciate it. It's been absolutely wonderful. And I can't thank you enough. I have a little bit of a bug buzzing around here. So if you're watching on YouTube, you might see a bug pop in front of the camera here as we're going along. Now, again, thank you to all of you who have been with the podcast over the last number of years. I truly appreciate it. I truly appreciate your insight, your reflection, your uh, sharing your support for what I've been doing, because I love your game. I've very much gotten to the point where I've fallen in love with cricket as well. As you know, you can see if you're on YouTube, I'm wearing my USA T20 Championship cricket T-shirt. I'm working on getting caught up with the games in Major League Cricket as well right now. Working a lot of hours at the summer job at the local amusement park. Um, but I did want to give a quick shout out to my mate Chris Pepper from over at Lace Out Podcast. He did a quick 3-minute episode that I'm going to link in my show notes about why Adam Simpson owes Andrew Dillon a huge thank you. And it deals with the revision of the payouts for coaches who have been dismissed from their position. And I remember talking about this a year and a half or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, when Brett Ratton was sacked from St. Kilda, when the opportunity to bring Ross Lyon back became something viable for them. And I guess I'll have to ask, how's that working out for you as a St. Kilda supporter? Yeah, they played finals, but I'm sure you're probably happy about that, but maybe not happy about where you are this year. But Brett Ratton got 6 months of payouts uh, not very long after having signed a 5-year contract. But Andrew Dillon changed the metrics on that to where now Adam Simpson, having left his position, is going to be getting paid, according to Pep's video on YouTube. He'll be getting paid a year of his contract, and the assistant coaches, whoever does not remain, will be getting, I believe, 6 months rather than 3 months of severance, if you will. And this is one of those things that I've wondered, as an American who's been following your game, and specifically being a fan of the Cleveland Browns, which has been, they're playing pretty good football right now. I don't want to say that they're a Super Bowl favorite this year, because I think they play in the toughest division in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Baltimore Ravens, the team that I hate more than anything on the planet. But you've got in the NFL, the teams are owned by, extraordinarily wealthy individuals, or a consortium of wealthy individuals. And the owner of the Cleveland Browns is a guy by the name of Jimmy Haslam. Now, you go back and trace the history of the Cleveland Browns. They were founded in 1946, and between 1946 and 1988, so that's what, 42 years, they had a total of 6 head coaches. 6. That's it. Only 6 head coaches. Since Jimmy Haslam, we affectionately call him Jimmy Truckstop, because he made all of his money um, operating huge petrol stations around the country called Pilot or Flying J. where semi trucks, cars will fuel up by snacks, that sort of thing. He's made billions of dollars doing that in his career. Um, but since he bought the team in 2012, he has had 6 head coaches, 6 in 12 years. You can do the math. It's about an average of 2 per year. Now, one of them was an interim coach, Greg Williams. Another couple of them lasted 1 season. The gentleman that's in the job right now, Kevin Stefanski, if you're an NFL fan, has won the Coach of the Year award twice, 2020 and 2023. So I think he's a keeper. They've actually, I believe, signed him to an extension. But there was a time, those contracts that the owner of the team was signing coaches to, the owner was obliged to pay that contract in full. So and I think I've talked about this in previous episodes. So if a coach got dismissed, that owner was on the hook for paying that entire contract. And there was a time where Jimmy Haslam was actually paying the salaries of not one, not two, not three, but 4 head coaches of the Cleveland Browns. Only one of them was actually coaching the team at that time because the previous 3 had been fired, but their contracts had been long enough that they still had years on that contract that they had to be paid, even though they were sitting on a beach somewhere. The amusement park that I work at, which is called Cedar Point, I was not working there at the time, but I know that one of the coaches that had been dismissed, a guy by the name of Mike Pettin, he spent most of the summer with his boat in the marina at that amusement park. Spent a lot of time there just hanging out on his boat because he wasn't coaching anymore and was making, what's the technical term, a shit ton of money. So I understand that the pockets of the NFL owners are significantly deeper than the pockets of AFL clubs memberships and the TV money that comes into the AFL. So I guess I understand why it's likely that a coach is not going to get their entire contract. But again, that's one of those things that I have to kind of reprogram my American mind to when it comes um, to sport, in specifically the AFL. And I don't know how that works with, say, Big Bash League cricket or anything of that nature, or, netball or basketball, the NBL in Australia. I don't know how that works in that situation there. Um, but I do want to wish Adam Simpson the absolute best. And I got to tell you, this is a guy who won a premiership, coached the Eagles in 12 different finals games, winning 7, losing 5, took his team to 2 grand finals. He won one of the grand finals, of course, in 2018. And I just think that, first of all, I'm not necessarily a critic of the media and that sort of thing, but I got to tell you, with everything that went on with the West Coast Eagles the last 3 years coming out of COVID, with all of the injuries and the fact that they were a club that needed to start a rebuild, that they kind of held on a year too long to start a rebuild, I thought it was a really, really poor choice for the cover of the newspaper with all of the L's and the few W's on the front page. And I'm so glad that many people who are either subscribers or many people in Australia who are fans of footy kind of put them on blast for that. And I did see that. I think Will Schofield fixed the cover and put on like, thank you, Simo, premiership coach, that sort of thing, because he won, he led the club to a premiership. Okay. And that's never going to go away. Now, yes, you have to look at the last 60 games, these last 3 seasons, 8 wins and 52 losses. But I'm going to challenge you, and I want to ask you, what senior coach could have, maybe they could have won 10, 11, 12 games possibly with the list and the number of injuries that the Eagles happen to have during these last 3 years and now into their rebuild, while they're beginning to, quite frankly, phase out some older players on their list. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If somebody else was a senior coach at that point in time, how many more wins would they have brought in? How much better a job would they have been able to do? And I get that Adam Simpson, and I've sledged on him as well. I've joked about how he was showing up at Hungry Jack's and going to the drive-through and looking for the young man operating the drive-through. Was he 190 centimeters? Did he weigh 84 kilos? Could he come in and play in the back 6 or in a small half forward for the club with all the injuries that they happen to have. I joked about it as well, but he was playing the cards that he was dealt. And again, you can't make changes really during the season in footy like you can in other sports like the NFL, where you can make a trade, or Major League Baseball, the NBA, and I think probably the NBL, where you can make a trade as well to try to improve the stock of players on your club. So I do think that the cover was in poor taste. Now, if you think about it, you go back to the first 8 years of his time as senior coach, 107 wins, 62 losses. Okay, 107 wins, 62 losses. Now that is, and I guess I should look at the overall total, and I didn't do the math. I didn't include finals with that, so it would be even better than that then. So he had 122 wins total, 119 losses. So if we do the math there, that's 114 wins, and then 67 losses. So 114 and 67 losses with one draw during the first 8 years. That's a winning percentage of around 64%. Now, you win 64% of your games, you've got a pretty good club, and you're a pretty damn good senior coach. Yeah, these last 3 years have quite frankly sucked for the Eagles. But and he's been kind of a fun whipping boy for a lot of people, but I just don't think that this was the way to treat him on the way out. And the fact that he has decided against a farewell game, I get it. I completely understand why he's decided, you know what? Nah, I'm done. I'm going to step away and I'm going to go enjoy life. Maybe he watches the game. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he goes out and plays some golf, goes out and does some surfing. I don't know what he does for fun. I'm going to guess he probably goes to Macca's instead of Hungry Jack's, however. But I want to wish Adam Simpson the best. And, if you're an Eagles supporter, I do think the glass is filling up. In terms of the whole, is the glass half full or half empty? I think it's filling up a little bit, drop by drop, but there's going to have to be a little bit more poured out before you start to backfill it even more, okay? But there are some good signs there. They've been competitive in some games this year. Now, they've played very poorly and been thumped pretty handily in quite a few games as well. But I do think that this is a club that is probably 3 years away from playing finals. I know I asked this earlier in the year, who was closer to being playing finals, and if I'm not mistaken, the choices I had there were Richmond and North Melbourne and West Coast. And I don't remember who the fourth club was that I had in the poll. But I still think that probably of those three, I think Richmond's probably the longest away from playing finals. I think North might be the closest of those three. And I think West Coast might be the one in the middle there. And I'd have to go back and look at the list of clubs to see who I was. It might have been somebody like Hawthorn, quite frankly. And Hawthorn, there they are, sitting level at 8-8 right now. So I do want to commend Peps for bringing that up and pointing out, that things are a little bit better for Adam Simpson and for the rest of the coaching staff at West Coast. I do feel bad because, when a coach does that sort of thing, and I know I talked about this with the Brett Ratton piece, when he was dismissed from the Saints, as a coach, you're making an economic commitment to your life. You're making economic decisions, whether it be, paying to send your child to university, purchasing a home, planning a vacation, whatever it is that you're planning on doing, making investments, starting up a side business, whatever it happens to be that you're doing, you're making those commitments with the idea that that salary is going to be coming in. So, I don't think that we'll ever find ourselves in a position in the AFL where clubs are mandated to pay out entire contracts. And if they are, maybe the alternative is that they sign coaches to shorter term contracts. Maybe they sign them to shorter guaranteed contracts, and if the coach does well, they add on a year or two here or there, but they're still committed to paying out that entire contract. Maybe that's the alternative. So if you've signed somebody to because I think Brett Ratton had signed a 5-year contract and he got 6 months out of it. So 4.5 years of the money that he was expecting to come in, it's gone. It's gone. He's never going to see it. It's going to go to somebody else. It's going to go to Ross Lyon, who's probably going to be getting paid more than Brett Ratton was as senior coach of the Saints. Okay. So, I completely get the whole idea of coaches being dismissed because if I had to sit down and try to fill out a list of all the coaches that the Cleveland Browns have had, it would be difficult for me to do it, because they just since 2012 when he bought the team. Pat Shermer was fired. Rob Chudzinski lasted a year. Mike Pettin lasted 3 years. 2 years, I'm sorry. Hugh Jackson lasted 2 years, 3 years. He won 3 games out of 39 games. 3 wins, 36 losses, and 1 tie. A winning percentage of 8.8%. 8.8%. I think some of you who are listening right now are probably drinking a beer with a higher alcohol content than 8.8%. Okay. On the flip side, and again, I'm thrilled with the guy that they've got there now. He's been there since 2020. I think he's going to be there long term. I think he's doing a tremendous job coaching this team. Okay. They had a guy who was there in 2019 for 1 year. So there's been a lot of turnover. You go back, you had a coach that was there from 2005 to 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2 years here and there. There was never any continuity. And quite frankly, in many cases, they were really bad as head coaches and senior coaches as well. But the guy they've got now, I'm pretty stoked about it. And will Adam Simpson ever coach again? Maybe. I don't know. He's a premiership coach. That will never change. That will never change. And, as an Eagles supporter, you've got to be able to hang your hat on that and still say, you know what, we got that one. There's a reason why that premiership flag is flying behind my right shoulder here, partly because there's a spare bedroom behind it. Okay, because I'm recording in I've converted this walk-in closet in a spare bedroom into where I record. So I wish Adam Simpson the best. I wish the Eagles the best. Okay, I really do. I wish the Eagles all the best. So let's jump into the games for this week. Got some really, really good matchups. You got Collingwood hosting Geelong Friday morning here, 5:40. I'll be up for that one. A lot of injuries for the Pies. The Cats may have just rediscovered their mojo. They won a couple in a row. Tom Stewart has started to look a little bit like Joel Selwood in the midfield. He's been sticking his nose into things. He's kind of inspiring by example. Dangerfield, inspiring by example. They lost a clearance battle last week still, but they won the war, if you will. The Pies have a lot of injuries. Looks like Jamie Elliott's maybe going to be back, but no Brody Mychek probably for the rest of the season with the torn pec muscle. If they play finals, which they probably will, he will likely be there. This is a clash of two titans right here. But I'm going with my Cats. Okay, they've righted the ship a little bit here. They've won 2 in a row, and you go back and you look at the 6 that they lost. There were a couple of really ugly matchups, but then they lost like 3 games by a combined, I think, 8 points. Okay, so how bad was bad for them? There was a lot of frustrating bad, but how bad was bad? So again, I'm going to go with the Cats to win this one by 10 points. And then we head to the SCG for the Swans and North Melbourne. And the Swans, they've dropped 2 in a row. They've suddenly become vulnerable. I've been watching the TV series The Boys, which is might be the most over-the-top television program I have ever watched. I watched my 81-year-old mom and I watched Breaking Bad over the last several months, and I told her that watching Breaking Bad, watching The Boys, was so over the top it made watching an episode of Breaking Bad like watching Sesame Street in terms of the violence and that sort of thing. But not to be a spoiler here, but Sydney has begun to look a little bit like a vulnerable Homelander, if you will, if you've been watching that show. And again, if you don't like violence, if you don't like overt, it's in many ways it's disgusting. And it may be that show that's kind of pushed the envelope that this is about as far as I want to go in terms of television programs. I mean, I watched The Walking Dead. I enjoyed that, but The Walking Dead is tame compared to this. Very much so. But again, the Swans have dropped 2 in a row. And don't look now, the Roos have begun playing some decent football. They've won 2 out of their last 5. And you have to look for the positives when you can. I know 2 out of 5, that's not a lot, but for North Melbourne, that's a significant improvement. Okay. And a couple of the games they didn't win have been close ones. Isaac Heaney looks like he's going to be out for his bump this past week. The Roos are no longer in the basement. Okay. They have closed their kitchen drawer and they are putting a lock on it with a little tiger on it, I think. Okay. I don't think the Roos are going to be falling back into the bottom of the ladder this year. I think that Richmond's going to take home the wooden spoon. Um, occasionally I will make some extraordinarily crazy tips, and I hope you're sitting down. Uh, Control your steering wheel if you're listening to this in your vehicle. I am actually going to tip North Melbourne to knock off the Heaney-less Swans by 7 points at the SCG in the shocker of all shockers. I think that the Roos are starting to play some good football. I think um, Sherry's going to match up very well with Brody Grundy. I just have this hunch about them this week, and I don't know why. And I've done this a couple times with Sydney this year. Remember, if you go back and you listen to the I think it was round 3 this year, I tipped Richmond to beat Sydney. People thought I was crazy then. They probably still think I'm crazy now. Not much has changed. I am crazy, but I'm going to go with the Roos to beat the Swans on the road this week. I might be wrong, but just what I think is going to happen. And we got Hawthorn hosting Fremantle down at University of Tasmania Stadium. Looks like there's some plans coming out for the new facility in Tasmania for the Devils Club. Both of these clubs are playing some pretty solid football. The Dockers have got themselves firmly planted in the top 4, the top 3 right now. I think a half game ahead of the number 4 spot on the ladder. They've won 3 in a row. The Hawks, they should get James Sicily, Chad Wingard back this week. Mitch Lewis, a big loss for them with the ACL injury. Fremantle's playing very fast footy. I think the weather could be a bit of a challenge for them because it's only supposed to be about 9 degrees on game day down in Tasmania. But I am going to go with the Dockers to win this one by a couple of goals. Okay. I just think the Dockers right now are a better side. I think that the Hawks are a much, much improved club. If you remember back at the beginning of the year, I contemplated putting them in my 8. I thought they might possibly get there, but they had a couple of injuries in their defensive structure that I thought was going to harm them. And they scuffled coming out of the gate, but they've been playing pretty good football as of recent. Of course, I'm glad they stubbed their toe last week, but I'm going to go with Fremantle to win this one. And then we head to Marvel Stadium for the Bulldogs hosting Carlton. This is the 200th game for Patrick Cripps. The Bulldogs had a shockingly bad performance last week down in Adelaide against the Power. The Blues dropped their game by a couple goals up at GWS. And I have to ask this, and as a Geelong supporter, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Okay, I really can't, because this is again, it's something that I've accepted, but I know I've said it a number of times. About club like the Cats playing a quote unquote home game away from their home ground. And I know everybody has always said, well, they've got to be able to win the premiership at the MCG. I get that. But if you lose a game on the way there as a home game, does that preclude you from getting to finals? There's certainly, it's chicken and egg. Okay. I get that. But what I wanted to ask is, we've got Richmond and GWS playing at the MCG. Now, this is not to take anything away from Richmond supporters, but their club right now is scuffling. So I wonder how many Richmond supporters are actually going to show up. How many GWS supporters are going to show up? Will we be able to count them by the dozen, by the 100? Will there be 1,000 GWS supporters there? I doubt it. There might be a few hundred. I mean, I hope there's 1,000. I hope a lot of folks make the trip down from Sydney and come to attend the game. But what I'm wondering is, would the comp, they flex times now. And again, I know the Bulldogs' home ground is Marvel Stadium, but I know that Carlton is playing really good football right now as well, and a lot of Blues supporters are going to show up at Marvel. Would it be better, in the best interest of the comp, to have flip-flopped the Richmond GWS games and the Bulldogs and Carlton games and play the Bulldogs and the Blues at the MCG? Now, I know if you're a Carlton supporter, you're nodding your head in agreement going, oh, absolutely, we should be playing at the MCG. I know you're all nodding your head right now. But, there's roughly 56,000 seats at Marvel. Between Carlton and the Bulldogs, do you think if they were at the MCG that they could put 60, 65,000 in there? is it in the best interest of the game to have fans sitting on the outside not being able to get tickets? Now, and I hope it sells out. I I'm not sitting here hoping, boy, I sure hope there's thousands of empty seats where I get proven wrong. Okay, I hope it's a sellout, and I hope that I don't really hope this, but there are going to be hopefully some sad people who cannot get tickets to get into the game for one reason or another. Okay, and we're not talking about moving the game from the city of Melbourne proper to Canberra or to Alice Springs or anything like that. We're talking about moving it a few kilometers away, which I know Richmond supporters love doing so much. But I just wanted to put that out there. But back to the game itself, I am going to go with Carlton to win this one by a couple of goals as well. I just think that Carlton is too good of a side right now. I don't know if Jacob Wiedering's going to be back in. Aaron Naughton's going to be out with concussion protocol. Cody Waitman is going to be a test to see whether or not he gets back in. Um, it's going to be interesting. I just think that this is going to be a really good matchup between these two sides. But I am going to go with the Blues to win this one. And then we head down to Adelaide for a clash between arguably the two should have beens for 2024. They were both kind of the avant-garde picks to play finals. I had the Saints, I believe, finishing in the top four. Now, they might finish in the bottom four by the time it's all said and done. Same with the Crows. I think I had the Saints finishing fourth and the Crows finishing fifth on the ladder this year. Neither one, I think combined right now, if we combine their records in terms of the number of wins that they have combined, would one of the clubs be in the finals at this point in time? I'm actually going to take a look at that right now here. Let's see. Adelaide has 5 wins. The Saints have 11 wins. Okay, so if they had, that's 11 wins combined there. So they'd be sitting number 2 on the ladder with those 11 wins if it was one club. So, you got no Isaac Rankin, with the month-long suspension, which I think is highly suspect. Looking at you, Braden Maynard. The Saints did get a big scalp last week against the Swans. And I think the Swans could be a little bit vulnerable this week. That's why I tipped the Roos to beat them. I am going to think that the Saints are going to find a way to win on the road. I'm going to go with the Saints to win this one by about 1.5 goals. So St. Kilda by 9 in this one. And then we get to a game that I think is a must win for both clubs, but I think it's going to be much more difficult for one of the two clubs. Okay. We've got, Melbourne sitting outside the 8 right now. Collingwood sitting outside the 8 right now. You've got Essendon sitting in the top 4, but their percentage, what's the technical term here, sucks. It's 99.9, okay? Which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 6th lowest percentage in the comp, okay? Hawthorn and St. Kilda are the only two clubs that are not in the bottom 3 that have a percentage lower than they do at 99.93. Melbourne is sitting outside the 8. They won their last game, but they're going to be without Max Gawn for a couple weeks. He's got a little chipped bone in his ankle. A lot of injuries with the D's. Ben Brown may not be back. And if you've got a fantasy team, you're playing super coach and you got Max Gawn, you're going, oh shit, what do I do now? I think the Bombers find a way to get themselves a win, and they find a way to add on a few percentage points, get it up over 100 to make it look a little bit more respectable. And I still think that percentage is going to come back and bite them in the ass before the season is over. It's going to cost them a spot on the ladder to where they might end up having to play a road finals game because of that. But I'm going to go with the Bombers to win this one by 15. Okay, so, and then we've got Gold Coast hosting Port Adelaide. The Suns are coming back home. They dropped another road game. They're still winless on the road this year, but they're undefeated at home. Port's won 2 in a row. And unfortunately for Gold Coast, they're going to be without their little spark plug. I think the leader of their midfield, Tuke Miller, for the next 4 weeks, I believe. I think arguably that, Port's got one of the better midfields in the comp at this point in time. And I think Port's going to find a way to tarnish Gold Coast's home record and give them their first loss at home this year. So I'm going to go with Port Adelaide to win this one by 11. I just think they find a way to get it done because they're a quality side. And I just think the loss of Tuke Miller is going to be too much for them to overcome at home. I hope it's a huge crowd. I don't know how many Port Adelaide supporters are going to be in People's First Banking Stadium, but it would be great to see a nice crowd there. But I do think Port's going to get the win here. And then we get to the last couple games of the round. Richmond hosting GWS. GWS got that big win against Carleton last week. The Tigers got mauled by the Dockers. It's a home game for Richmond at the MCG, so I think that's worth a goal or two. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, but I do think that GWS is going to add some percentage. I've got GWS winning this one by 5 goals. I just think they're too good of a side right now, and Richmond has way too many holes. It's one of those things. What we're seeing happening with Richmond, I think, is in many ways where North Melbourne was a short while back, where we're just going to have to play this out, and they're going to have to start that rebuild, and it's going to take some patience on the part of Richmond supporters. And I know there was that 37-year gap, and I hope it's not that again for all of you, because let's be honest with you, I won't be doing the podcast at that point in time because I would be 98 years old, and guess what? I will be dead. But I'm going to go with GWS to win this one. I don't care how well I'm eating, how much I'm walking. 98, not likely to be on the list of things that's going to be happening. Okay. And we get to the last game of the weekend, and it's the one that Adam Simpson could have had a farewell game, and he said, thanks, but no thanks. And we got Brisbane heading out to Optus to face off against the Eagles. I can't say that I blame him, quite frankly. This is, a hugely difficult task for the Eagles. The Lions have won 5 in a row. They're going to be without Brandon Starcevich, who got concussed. I do think that the Lions are going to win this one handily, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. Okay, I really do. I'm going to go with the Lions to win this one by about 4 goals. But what we have to keep in mind is that this is in many ways the start of 6 weeks of auditions for every player well, not every player necessarily, because there are a lot of them that will be back because of who they are, their contract status, that sort of thing. But there are a lot of players, if they're getting selected for the 22, they may not win, but it would be in their best interest to absolutely play their asses off if they're wanting to have a new contract offered to them for 2025, to have a spot with their club, or if they get delisted by the Eagles, which I guess you could say, wow, they get delisted by the Eagles, nowhere to go but up or down, which I guess then you'd be looking at, a spot with Richmond in that case. But you've got a lot of players who are going to be playing for jobs for next year who are going to possibly be out of contract. So if you're getting selected in the 22 or the 23 with the sub, the tactical sub, you're going to be wanting to do things that are going to ensure that you play as well as you can to put yourself in as good a position as you possibly can be for your career in 2025, and making sure that you get selected in subsequent rounds. Okay, so you're wanting to make sure that you get selected for the rounds that come after that. Okay, the Eagles, their run home, if you will, they've got the Lions, they've got the Saints, they've got the Dockers again, they've got the Suns, they go play the Roos down in Tasmania, they've got Carleton, and then they finish off, at Geelong. So they've still got 1, 2, 3, 4 games at Optus, and a trip to Victoria, and a trip to Tasmania. Actually, 2 trips to Melbourne, or Melbourne proper, I guess you could say, Geelong and Melbourne with Marvel there. But they're playing for their careers right now, and I guess technically every player, especially at this point in time, you're playing for that next contract. You're playing for that next year to get signed on for another year or another 2 years, as the case may be. And we'll see what happens. Again, this is the one of the weekends where I would have been in Australia had I not had to postpone my trip. And I'm just looking at the schedule. I would have been at the Collingwood Geelong game. Okay, I would have had to have made a choice between the Bulldogs and Blues or Melbourne and Essendon. I probably would have gone Bulldogs and Blues because it's at Marvel, just to visit Marvel Stadium. And then I would have gone back then probably on Sunday for the Richmond and GWS game. So I would have been able to see 3 games this weekend while I was there. Okay. But next year it's happening. So there's my take on round 18. I had a lot of things going on this week, so I was not able to, make a connection with Mick Aussie. I do have 3 interviews that are in the can that I need to get edited. I've just been working a ton of hours at my summer job. Um, yeah, I had both my kids home for the first time in over a year, over the last couple of weeks as well, which has been great to have them, but it's kind of moved some things off the table here. And, I've got several great interviews lined up that I need to get scheduled, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the swing of that because that's what I absolutely love to do. I love to share your stories. And if you happen to have a great story, I love talking to people who have played this game at different levels. I've got one AFL player who I'm going to be, or former AFL player that I'm going to be having on. He played in the Sandful also for a number of years. I do need to reach back out to him. We were going to set something up before he went on a long trip to Europe. I believe he's back now, so I do need to reach out to him and get that set up because I'm really looking forward to that conversation as well. But if you know somebody that would be a great guest, maybe it's you, please reach out. Send me an email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. Reach out to me on my socials at yank_on X or Twitter, a Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook, on Instagram, a Yank on the Footy as well. You can find me, Craig Wessels, on Facebook as well, or on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Get subscribed over on my podcast website if you would, folks. Please share the episode with your friends and family. The first 400 are in the books. Let's bring on the next 400 now. Okay? Let's bring on the next 400. And I'm really looking forward to bringing 401 to you here very, very soon. I appreciate the kind words. Again, get subscribed. Okay? Leave a review. That would be a huge help. And if you want to help out the podcast, you can click on that Buy Me a Coffee button up at the top of the page on my website, ayankonthefooty.com as well. Thanks for the kind words. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I'll catch you later. And don't forget, please, if you need to talk to somebody, reach out, get in touch with somebody, check on your friends, make sure they're okay. If you need to talk to somebody, let them know that you're not okay. It's okay to tell somebody that. Those phone numbers are in my show notes, every single episode of the podcast. Please reach out. Okay, the world is a much, much better place with you here. All right. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Craig Wessels. This was episode 343. I'll talk to you soon. Let me know what you think. Reach out on my socials. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.